gringo or gringa. That's a word I have used all my life. And it's a word Hispanics often use to refer to Americans. And it's typically all the time used as a derogatory term. And then last year, that word was used to describe me. Last year, I went on a bridge year to Brazil. And to them, I was the gringa. I, of course, was a foreigner. And of course, even though the word remained the same, the connotation also remained the same. And although I want to say no, that word isn't something to describe myself, that's a word I also use to describe Americans, I was a foreigner to them and I had to deal with that. I thought I was closer to their culture because I'm also Latina, but nonetheless, I was still an outsider, as I mentioned before. And when I arrived to Brazil, just like I thought they all knew how to samba, they all thought all I ate was fast food. My host family was actually relieved that I ate food just like them, rice and beans and meat, because they thought they would have to cook hot dogs and hamburgers and pizza for me all year. Going into another country, it was clear that I was going to deal with stereotypes, but I wasn't prepared to deal with them to the extent that they were thrown at me. It went to the extent that I was asked if it's true that in the US we were all taught that we won all of the wars we fought in, and to another extreme extent where I was told, not even asked, that the US has no cancer at all, which was something that impacted me greatly. And that's when I decided to no longer just keep my conversations very short by saying, no, in America we don't do this, or no, in America we do this. Now it was like, okay, sit down and I'll explain to you everything in detail. So it went from being just really short things to being like, okay, this is how we specifically do it in my Cuban American community, to how different parts of Miami do it or are different opinions, and then to how Florida views something or how Florida generally acts, and then to the entire US and how different parts of it act, like the South or California or New England. And as people got to know me and they would talk to others about me, they'd often be confused because they'd be like, oh, she's Cuban, but she speaks English. Or she lives in the US, but she doesn't have any American customs. And it even went as far that I had many awkward moments when I greeted people, because at this point they didn't know if they could kiss me on the cheek, like how I said all Cubans do and how I said I'm more comfortable with, or if they would give me a handshake, because in the end I was American, I do live in the US, and that's how they see that Americans all greet themselves in movies. And because of that, putting aside that it was embarrassing most of the time, it was nice to know that they were getting to see me for not solely being one thing, but seeing all these different parts of me and seeing what I'm actually made of. I always tried my best to represent the US with all the aspects it has, with all the different cultures it is, by showing it not as the Hollywood way we're depicted as, or the fast food way, but as the actual melting pot that we are. And while also representing my own background, which is Cuba, and talking more about Cuba as well. With my Bridge Year program, they specifically reminded me not to go into the country where I was going to live in with all these huge expectations of what Brazil was going to be, or what specific experiences and interactions with people I was supposed to have. And I feel that was one of the most important things I learned. Communicating across with different cultures, it makes the gap between you and I smaller. And instead of looking as to another person as that person, or being like, oh, in their culture, it just really makes you want to know someone for who they actually are. And in my community, and I was in the beginning referred to as the American or the Cuban, but towards the end they all referred to me just as Camila. Thank you.